Hello and welcome to the SMART Goal and Objectives tutorial. After completing this tutorial, you should be able to describe what the acronym SMART stands for, define the difference between goals and objectives, long, medium and short-term objectives, identify the questions that should be asked to test your objectives, meet the SMART criteria, and practice setting goals and objectives yourself. So let's start this tutorial. At one stage or another during our working careers, we have had to set goals and objectives, and most times we struggle to achieve our goals and objectives. The reason for this is not because of lack of effort, but because the goals are not structured correctly. So when next faced with the task of writing a goal and objective for yourself or your team, keep in mind the acronym SMART. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, agreed on and actionable, realistic and relevant, and time-bound. Before we go into detail of SMART, it is important to be able to distinguish the difference between goals and objectives. Goals are broad statements about long-term expectations. For example, I want to get my driver's license, where objectives describe the results to be achieved. So to get my driver's license, I would need to decide when I would want to get my license, and this can be considered a long-term objective. I need to study and write my learner's license. That could be considered a medium-term objective. And I would need to practice driving every day. That would be the short-term objective. SMART begins by asking yourself questions to evaluate and test your objectives. A goal that is very specific has a higher chance of being adhered to. Therefore, test your goal by ensuring it has strong verb words, action words like develop, build, and plan. Have you included who will be involved and if they are on board, and whether this outcome will have the desired results? If not, rewrite your goal until you can answer in the affirmative to these questions. The next step is to add a measurement metric to your goal. The questions here that you need to ask is, how will the goal be measured, and how will I know that it's been achieved? Actionable and achievable is the next step. This is the part of the goal or objective that sets out the action plan to achieve the goal. Questions to ask here are, is there a plan in place covering all aspects or elements of the goal? Are the relevant resources available? And what are the constraints that you need to work around, if any? Moving to the R in SMART, which stands for relevant or realistic. Objectives must be relevant for the goal, for the goal to be achieved. So it is important to ensure relevancy. Setting too many goals at the same time can be overwhelming. Therefore, use the 80-20 rule. Choose 20% of the goals that will deliver 80% return. Last but not least, time-bound. For your goal to have any chance of being achieved, it must have an end date. An end date allows you to monitor progress. Now that we know the difference between goals and objectives, what questions to ask to evaluate and test your goal, let's take a look at a goal with a SMART objective. Our goal is to complete the safety section of my logbook. Here is an example of a not so SMART objective. The risk assessment section of my logbook must be completed. Okay, so let's break down this objective by applying the SMART technique to it. First of all, you need to decide what is the specific task that you are going to be doing. And in this case, it's write and understand risk assessments. How are we going to measure it? We're going to conduct and write 4 risk assessments. Is it achievable and actionable? Is it achievable and actionable? Yes, it is an achievable task, and we'll write down our action plan. Is it realistic and relevant? It is realistic and relevant, and the only resources that you're going to be requiring is the risk assessment form and the opportunity to write risk assessments. And lastly, we need to put a start and an end date. So this is a long-term goal. It shouldn't take more than 3 months from start to finish. So once we've done all of that, let's have a look to see what our goal can look like after we've applied the SMART technique to it. After 3 months, or by June the 5th, and after being coached by the safety mentor on writing comprehensive safety assessments, covering at least 4 different tasks on site, and by studying the Safety Act and the relevant specifications, I will be in a position to have the risk assessment section of my logbook completed and signed off by my mentor. If you have a look at this objective, it talks to all the SMART the SMART criteria. It is a much better goal and objective, and will most probably be adhered to a lot easier. So that concludes this tutorial on goals and SMART objectives. I encourage you to practice writing goals and SMART objectives in all areas of your life, and you will see the difference that it makes. Thank you and goodbye.